The first thing Captain Elias Ward felt was heat. A crushing, suffocating weight of it that pressed into his skull and baked his skin. His ship was gone, buried somewhere behind him in a line of smoking wreckage. The crash had broken half his ribs and left him crawling across sand that shimmered like molten glass. He hadn't had water in 2 days. His suit's recycler was cracked. His lips split each time he gasped, his throat raw, every breath like inhaling fire. He staggered once more before collapsing into the dust. So this is how it ends, he thought. Not in the void, not in battle, but in thirst. A shadow fell across him. For a moment, he thought it was death itself. Then, cool liquid touched his lips. A trickle. He coughed, choked, and then greedily swallowed. His body screamed for more. His eyes fluttered open. They weren't human. Scaled, ridged faces stared at him. 3, maybe 4 figures. Eyes glinted like molten copper. They wore ragged cloths soaked dark with sweat. One of them, the tallest, held the flask steady as Elias drank again. When the water touched his tongue, tears stung his eyes. "Enough!" the tallest one hissed in a guttural, rasping voice. He snatched the flask back. The others whispered harshly, glancing around the dunes as if afraid of being seen. Elias tried to sit up, but his body betrayed him. His voice cracked. Why help me?" The tallest figure's frills quivered, uncertain. "Because you are dying. Even if the law forbids it." Law? Elias frowned through the haze. He had read reports of the Thrin, a desert-born species clinging to survival, but he had never expected to meet them like this. Another Thrin, smaller, leaned close. Its eyes were softer. "No one deserves to die thirsty." The words hit him harder than the water. They helped drag him beneath the shade of a ruined crawler. The tallest handed back the flask, though his claws trembled as if expecting punishment to strike from the sky. Elias drank slowly now, fighting the urge to drain it all. He knew instinctively that every drop cost them dearly. "Thank you," he rasped. "You saved me." The tallest bared his teeth. Not a smile, more a grimace. "No. We have doomed ourselves if the enforcers learn of this." Elias blinked. "For giving me water?" "Yes," the smaller one whispered, shivering despite the heat. "Water is rationed. To give it freely is rebellion." The human let silence stretch. In his mind, 2 truths collided. His own desperate survival and the staggering weight of their gift. He looked at them, scales glistening in the sun, eyes torn between pity and terror. And he swore then, with every ounce of his battered will, that this moment would not be forgotten. "You gave me water," Elias said, his voice steadier now, carried on something deeper than thirst. "And because of that, humanity will end your drought." The Thrin stared at him as though he had lost his mind. But Elias meant every word. The desert village clung to life like a secret. From the ridge above, Elias saw that the homes were carved into stone bluffs, their entrances narrow to keep the wind and heat out. Canvas tarps stretched across alleyways to create strips of shade where children huddled, their scales pale and cracked from lack of moisture. The air smelled faintly of dust and metal, as if the land itself were rusting. The Thrin who had saved him brought him here in silence. Only the smallest, whose name Elias later learned was Keth, walked near him with open curiosity. The tallest, a broad-shouldered male, with sun-scorched frills, never gave his name. His gaze never softened. As they descended into the village, Elias noticed how every jar, every container, was sealed tight. Water was not poured, it was measured in drops. He saw a mother dip a cloth in a shallow bowl to wipe her child's face, then wring the moisture back into the vessel. His throat tightened, and not just from thirst. He had thought Earth's deserts brutal, but this was survival distilled into ritual. They led him to a low stone chamber. Keth pressed a flask into his hands. "Drink, slowly." Elias obeyed, but guilt gnawed at him. Every swallow felt like theft. "You shouldn't waste this on me," he said hoarsely. Keth's frills trembled in surprise. "Waste? You are alive! That is enough!" The older Thrin's voice cut through the chamber. "Quiet, Keth. He should know the truth." He turned to Elias, eyes hard. "We risk death by giving you water. The enforcers ration it by decree of High Chancellor Drexan. To share outside the allotment is forbidden." Elias frowned. "Even if someone's dying?" "Especially then," the elder spat. "Drexan says suffering makes us strong, but it only makes us weak and afraid." The name lodged itself in Elias's mind. Drexan, a ruler who had turned thirst into a weapon. He had studied regimes like that in Earth's history. Governments that hoarded grain while people starved, or withheld medicine to keep populations obedient. But to do it with water. That night, Elias lay awake on the cool stone floor. The stars above burned bright, undimmed by atmosphere or pollution. He thought of Earth, of rivers winding through forests, of rain hammering rooftops in summer storms. To think that a whole people had been denied that wonder for centuries. His chest ached with fury and pity both. In the morning, the village stirred with nervous energy. A horn sounded from the desert, low and metallic. The elder stiffened. Enforcers! Elias followed the villagers to the square. Dust plumes rose on the horizon. 6 armored crawlers grinding across the dunes. Each was painted with Drexan's sigil, a jagged sunburst. When they arrived, armored Thrin soldiers leapt down, their carapaces gleaming. At their head strode a tall figure in black plating, helm-crested with crimson frills. His voice carried like a blade across stone. "People of Kashara, by decree of the High Chancellor, your water allotment is reduced. Production quotas unmet. Resistance will be punished." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Elias felt Keth press close to him, trembling. The enforcer's gaze swept the square and landed on Elias. "What is this?" the enforcer barked. "A stranger?" The elder stepped forward, bowing low. "A survivor of a wreck, Commander. He is nothing." The enforcer's eyes narrowed. He strode to Elias, claws clicking on stone. "Human." He spat the word like poison. "This world is closed. Your kind has no claim here." Elias forced himself to stand tall despite his bruised ribs. "I didn't come by choice. Your people found me dying and saved me." "Then they have broken the law." The commander raised a clawed hand. "Water is for the faithful, not for strays." The soldiers stirred, weapons raised. The villagers shrank back. Elias felt fury rise in him, but he kept his voice calm, steady. "If mercy is a crime, then your laws are broken." The commander froze, frills bristling. For a heartbeat, Elias thought that he'd struck him. Then the soldier snarled and turned away. "Keep him. But if Drexan learns of this, you will all answer." With that, the enforcers collected their tribute. Sealed jars lifted from trembling hands and departed in a roar of engines. The villagers sagged, as if the very air had been stolen with the water. Keth whispered, "This is how it always is. Every moon, they take more. Soon, there will be nothing left." Elias clenched his fists. He thought of the portable atmospheric processors his colony ships carried. Machines that could pull clean water from vapor, even in barren worlds. A single human freighter could have saved this village. A single generator could have ended their fear. But Drexan wouldn't allow it. Elias understood now. The drought wasn't just natural. It was power, sharpened into chains. That night, Elias sat with the elder by a dim lantern. "Tell me about Drexan," he asked. The elder's eyes glowed faintly in the dark. "He is the law. He rules from the Citadel of Suns, where the last great reservoirs lie. He says the drought is eternal, that to end it would anger the gods. But we know," the elder's voice cracked, "we know he keeps the reservoirs for his loyalists. Rivers enough to fill this desert, and we are left with dust." Elias's chest burned. He thought of humanity's first steps into space, The treaties, the wars, the hard lessons learned. How easy it would have been for humans to fall into the same trap. Hoarding, rationing, enslaving through scarcity. Yet, they had chosen Huinatille. Fervently. He placed his hand flat on the stone. Where I come from, water flows in rivers so wide, you cannot see the far bank. We can make rain fall where there was none. We can build machines to turn air into oceans. The elder stared, unblinking. Lies. No, Elias said, his voice fierce with conviction. The only lie is that you must live like this. I swear, if I can reach my people, I will bring you more water than you can imagine. Keth's eyes widened with childlike wonder. Rivers, truly? Elias met his gaze. Truly. The elder's expression softened, just a fraction. If you speak truth, then perhaps your coming is no accident. Perhaps the desert itself has chosen its weapon. Elias leaned back, staring at the alien stars. He felt the weight of promise heavy on his shoulders, but also the fire of resolve. For one small act of kindness, he would give an entire world its future back. And somewhere beyond the dunes, in a fortress of hoarded reservoirs, Drexan ruled with thirst and fear. Elias knew their paths would cross. Elias worked with trembling hands, adjusting the cracked panel of his beacon. The crash had shattered most of his equipment, but the emergency transceiver had survived in pieces. If he could coax it back to life, he could signal the human colonies within range. The work was agonizingly slow. His ribs throbbed each time he bent. Tools were improvised, bits of metal scavenged from the wreck, wires stripped with a villager's knife. The Thrin children watched him from the shadows, their eyes wide, as though expecting the device to breathe fire. Keth sat closest, frill twitching with excitement. Is this magic? Elias chuckled despite the pain. Not magic, just stubborn human engineering. He tightened a wire, sparks spitting against his fingers. The faint glow of a power cell flickered to life. His chest eased. The beacon lived. But the range was weak. To reach human patrol lanes, he'd need to amplify the signal with the ship's core. And the wreck lay half-buried 3 dunes away, under the watch of Drexan's patrols. The elder, who had been silent, finally spoke. If you call your kind, what will they bring? Elias looked up, meeting the old alien's sunken eyes. Hope. Machines that can pull water from air, carve rivers from sand. Enough to end this drought forever. The chamber went still. The villagers shifted uneasily. Some looked eager, others fearful. The elder's voice was grave. You do not understand. Drexan's empire is built on thirst. If the drought ends, his rule ends. He will not allow it. He will burn whole villages to keep control. Then let him try, Elias said quietly. No tyrant holds forever. The elder's frills drooped. You are brave, human. Brave or foolish. The next day, whispers spread. When Elias walked through the square, he felt eyes on him. Not with suspicion, but with something sharper. Hunger, but not for food. A hunger for possibilidade. Liti. 2 women approached, carrying cracked urns. Human, one said softly. Is it true? Your kind can make rivers? Elias hesitated, then nodded. Yes. Rivers, lakes, even rain. Her hands trembled as she clutched the urn. If you speak truth, then we will follow you, even if Drexan forbids it. The other woman hissed nervously, glancing around. Quiet, the walls have ears. But her eyes lingered with the same desperate hope. By dusk, Elias understood. The seed had been planted. One whisper was enough to fracture a regime built on silence. That night, Elias returned to the wreck. Keth insisted on following, despite Elias's protests. The boy's thin frame darted easily over the dunes, his frills pressed low in fear of being spotted. The desert stretched endless and silent, stars glaring down like watchful eyes. The wreckage jutted from a dune like a scar. Elias's heart clenched at the sight. Twisted steel, scorched plating, the corpse of his vessel. He knelt by the hull, prying free the transceiver's core. Keth crouched beside him. "Will they come soon?" "If the signal reaches them," Elias muttered, straining at a jammed bolt. "Maybe a few days, maybe longer." "And when they come," Keth whispered, "will they fight Drexen?" Elias paused, meeting the boy's gaze. He remembered stories from Earth's past. The oppressed praying for saviors. The terrible costs when salvation clashed with tyranny. "They won't come to conquer," he said at last. "They'll come to give you what should never have been taken. Water." Keth's eyes shone. For a moment, Elias saw not a child of the desert, but a child of any world, clinging to hope like oxygen. But when they returned, the village was not as they had left it. Enforcers stood in the square, their crimson sigils blazing under torchlight. The commander from before paced like a predator, eyes gleaming with suspicion. Villagers huddled against the walls, silent and afraid. The elder stood before the commander, spine stiff. "We have nothing more to give. You've taken all." The commander's gaze shifted, landing on Elias as he entered. "The stray returns." His frills rippled with contempt. "And from where, I wonder?" Elias forced calm into his voice. "From my wreck. Collecting what I could salvage." "Salvage?" The commander stalked forward. "Or treason? Whispers reach me, human. Whispers of rivers. Whispers of hope." He spat the word as if it were poison. Keth gasped softly. The commander's gaze snapped to him. "And you, spawnling. Did you drink the human's lies?" The boy trembled, but Elias stepped between them. His ribs flared with pain, but his voice was steady. "He's just a child." The commander's frills flared in fury. "You think you're, say, left brave, human? Mercy will not save them." He raised his claw. Soldiers leveled weapons at the villagers. The square froze, silence stretching like a blade about to fall. Then the elder spoke, his voice rough but clear. "We are dying anyway. If hope is treason, then let us be traitors." A murmur rippled through the villagers. For the first time, Elias saw not fear, but defiance in their eyes. The soldiers hesitated, claws tightening on weapons. The commander's gaze burned with rage. "You dare!" But he did not finish. A horn sounded from the dunes, urgent, blaring. Another patrol signaling distress. The commander snarled, torn between crushing the spark here and answering the alarm. He hissed, lowering his claw. "This is not finished. Drexen will hear of this." He motioned, and the soldiers withdrew, engines roaring into the desert night. The square exhaled as one. Keth clung to Elias's arm, trembling. The elder turned to Elias, eyes fierce. "You see, human, the seed is planted. They fear the whisper of rivers more than blades." Elias looked at the stars, where his signal now pulsed faintly through the void. Somewhere out there, humanity might be listening. And when they came, the desert would never be the same. The night sky broke with fire. Elias stood on the ridge outside the village, ribs bound with cloth, beacon clutched in hand. The stars shimmered as streaks of light burned across them, ships descending fast. His heart slammed against his chest. The signal had worked. Humanity had heard. Villagers gathered behind him, whispering in awe and terror. "Falling stars! No, ships! Is this the rivers he promised?" Keth tugged at Elias's sleeve. "They came," the boy breathed, eyes wide. "They truly came." "They came," Elias said softly, "because you gave me water." But the news reached Drexen first. In the Citadel of Suns, carved from black stone and fed by secret reservoirs, High Chancellor Drexen rose from his throne as reports arrived. His scales, once a proud bronze, had dulled with age, but his eyes burned with unyielding cunning. "Human ships in orbit," his adjutant rasped. "They claim to bring aid. Machines that make water from air." Drexen's frills flared with rage. Aid is rebellion. Water is power. If rivers return, my empire crumbles. Gather the legions. Burn every village that harbors this human. Make an example. But the people... The adjutant hesitated. The people are cattle, Drexen snapped. Thirst keeps them docile. Without it, they will rise. This human must die before the first drop falls. By dawn, Drexen's enforcers returned. Crawlers thundered into Kashara, weapons gleaming, banners snapping under the searing wind. The commander dismounted with a sneer. By order of the High Chancellor, he bellowed, the human called Elias Ward is condemned to death for heresy against the Drought. Gasps tore through the crowd. Keth clutched Elias's arm. The elder stepped forward, voice trembling but firm. You cannot. He is our guest. He has harmed no one. The commander struck him down with the back of his claw. The old Thrin crumpled, blood staining Tessiantayan. His hand. Stand aside, the commander growled. The law is clear. Elias's chest burned with fury. He stepped forward, facing the line of soldiers. If you kill me, you kill your future. Humanity came to give you rivers. Drexen would rather see you crawl in dust than see you free. Murmurs surged. The villagers' eyes darted between Elias and the commander. Hope clashed with fear. Lies! The commander roared. The drought is eternal. Only Drexen guards the reservoirs. Only Drexen decides who drinks. Elias raised his voice, louder than he thought his broken ribs could allow. No, water belongs to everyone, to every child, every family, every soul that breathes. He pointed to the sky, where human ships gleamed like silver shards in the sun. Look, the rivers are coming! The villagers turned their eyes upward. For the first time, they saw the faint shimmer of descending dropships. The sight cracked something in them, fear giving way to wonder. The commander sensed it too. Rage twisted his features. Kill him, now! Soldiers raised rifles, but none fired. Hands shook, frills quivered. One soldier lowered his weapon first, eyes locked on the sky. Another followed. The commander snarled, slashing the air with his claws. Obey! And still, no shot rang out. The villagers surged forward instead, voices rising. Rivers! Rivers! Stones clattered against armor. Children shouted. The elder, bloodied but standing, spat at the commander's feet. You cannot stop the tide, he rasped. The commander staggered back, fury blazing, but the crowd pressed too close. Soldiers faltered, hemmed in by their own people. The enforcer's iron grip cracked under the weight of defiance. Elias seized the moment. He raised his hands. Hold the line. Humanity will bring water. Stand together, and Drexen's drought will end tonight. The roar of dropships thundered overhead. Great match, Kemdende. Inez descended, kicking up storms of sand. Their hulls bore the emblem of Earth's frontier fleets, a blue circle split by a silver wave. The first to land unfolded like a blooming flower, massive vents opening to the air. Vapor hissed, then cascaded in mist. Cool droplets touched Elias's skin. The villagers gasped as fog rolled across the square, beating on their scales, their tongues darting out instinctively to catch the first taste of free water in living memory. Tears blurred Elias's vision. He had seen rain 1,000 times on Earth, but never had he understood its sacred weight until this moment. The commander's voice broke the awe. No! This is heresy! Stop them! A stone struck his helm, then another. Villagers surged, emboldened. Soldiers broke rank, some fleeing, some throwing down weapons. The commander roared in futile rage as he was dragged down by the very people he had starved. The desert itself seemed to shift. Hope, once forbidden, now flowed freely. But Drexen would not yield so easily. His legions marched from the citadel, a tide of armored crawlers and banners under the harsh sun. Elias knew the battle was only beginning. Yet as he stood in the midst of humanity's machines, Keth clutching his arm, The elder at his side, Elias also knew one truth Drexen could never silence. The desert had tasted water, and it would never thirst quietly again. The first drops fell like jewels, soft, hesitant, almost afraid to touch the cracked soil. For centuries, the people of Thalros had prayed for this moment. But now silence gripped them as the heavens broke open. Clouds, engineered with precision and seeded with microorganisms from Earth's weather archives, spread across the horizon. Lightning carved streaks through the sky, followed by rolling thunder that shook the mountains. The rain came heavy, relentless, and alive. Kaivar, once so skeptical, lifted his clawed hand skyward, his scaled skin shimmering under the torrent. He laughed, a raw, disbelieving sound, before it broke into sobs. Farmers, warriors, children, and elders poured from their shelters, letting the water soak them to the bone. Commander Elena Torres stood among them, her boots sinking in the forming mud. She had seen this before on Earth. Deserts blooming after decades of drought. But here, on an alien world, the weight of it pressed against her chest. She whispered, almost to herself, "This is why we came." Rebuilding trust. Days passed. The rivers filled again. Seeds, long dormant, burst from the ground in explosions of green. Herds returned, flocks wheeled in the skies, and the haunting silence of Thalros was replaced with the sounds of renewal. The elders of the council, once divided, now bowed low before the humans. Not in subservience, but in reverence. "Your kind could have asked for payment, dominion, or conquest," one elder said, voice trembling with awe. "Instead, you gave us the sky itself. Why?" Elena exchanged a glance with Dr. Ishan Mehra, the architect of the terraforming sequence. He smiled faintly, weary yet proud. "Because," Elena said, stepping forward, "when one of yours found me broken and thirsty in the desert, he gave me water without asking for anything. To us, that means debt is owed, not by the weak to the strong, but by the strong to the kind." The words rippled through the council chambers, settling into the bones of every Thalrosi. The antagonists' reckoning. Kaivar, who had once opposed the humans, now carried a different burden. His voice, broadcast across villages and towns, echoed in every home. "I feared them. I mistrusted them. I believed humans would come as conquerors. But I was wrong. They came as rain." His confession did not weaken him. It bound his people tighter. Leaders who had preached suspicion now followed his call. For the first time in generations, the Thalrosi had hope. Humanity's gift. The Earth fleet did not stay long. Their mission was never to rule, only to heal. Once the planetary climate system stabilized, the ships prepared to depart. But before leaving orbit, they deployed a final gift: orbital weather stations tied to Earth's ancient meteorological AI. They would ensure that Thalros never again slipped into barren silence. From the planet's surface, Kaivar and Elena stood side by side, watching the sky ripple with auroras as the stations activated. "This bond," Kaivar said, his deep voice resonant with emotion, "we will carry it longer than memory, longer than stone." Elena smiled. "Then carry it well, because humans don't forget kindness either." The legacy of a drink. As the fleet departed, stories spread through the galaxy. Not of war, not of conquest, but of a people who gave water to a single stranded human and received an entire world's salvation in return. To some species, it was a myth. To others, a warning. But to those who had known drought, hunger, and despair, it was proof that humanity was something the galaxy had not yet understood. A force that did not just survive, a force that nurtured. Closing note. When the first harvest was gathered under the reborn rains, the Thalrosi carved a monument at the mouth of the valley where Elena had been found. It was simple. A human hand offering a cup of water to alien claws. The inscription read in both tongues. They gave water. We gave the sky. End of story. And as always, if you enjoyed this SCI-FI tale of humanity's heart and strength, don't forget to subscribe to The Void Narratives for more.